Welcome to this explainer. Okay, I want you to completely forget everything you think you know about teleportation from science fiction movies. Today, we're diving into a genuinely mind-bending framework from our source material known as the Dual Caustic Universe, or DCU. It's this incredible model where the absolute cutting-edge frontiers of quantum physics directly intersect with scriptural architecture, and we're going to use it to unpack one of the most fascinating phenomena in modern science: quantum teleportation.
So here's the big question we're tackling. How exactly does an identity travel when the body itself never actually moves? We really need to hook into this idea right away, because in the DCU framework, quantum teleportation isn't about transporting physical matter like a sci-fi transporter beam. Not at all. Instead, it's modeled as the pure transfer of an information execution thread. The identity arrives perfectly intact, but the particle never actually crosses any physical distance. Crazy, right?
To understand how this works, we're going to map out a specific logical flow called the 2 to 3 to 2 to 7 cycle. We'll quickly cover the state before measurement, entanglement, measurement, the classical covenant, perfect reconstruction, and finally, how identity travels without motion.
Section 1, the state before measurement. Let's look at the absolute starting point.
Right, so before any scientist even touches their lab apparatus, the particle holds what the source text calls a book state. It's totally undefined, just pure potential. The source refers to this as the seed, denoted by the number 3, and aligns it with verse 231, the names taught before creation. And here's the absolutely crucial part. This particle is not a tiny physical object waiting to be discovered. It has no trajectory, no location. It is literally just pure information, a command waiting to be executed.
The text actually draws a really fascinating parallel here. It suggests that every particle is simply a 36.3 reader. Its only job? To execute a state that was already written into the quantum register long before the measurement ever even happened.
Section 2. Entanglement as bifurcation. This is the 2 to 3 phase.
Now, in this model, entanglement isn't just taking two completely separate objects and randomly linking them together. Instead, that original seed we just talked about bifurcates into complementary nodes. One becomes the D10 node, which the source likens to the lamp. It's deterministic, it's particle-like, and it essentially burns with visible classical data. The other becomes the I9 node, likened to the oil. This one acts as a wave, hidden in latency, just silently sustaining the meaning of the lamp. So what's the core takeaway? They are absolutely not separate entities. Think of it like a computer system. It's one single execution thread running simultaneously on two processors. Without the hidden latency of the I9 oil, the measured D10 lamp is just random noise. And without the D10 lamp, well, the I9 oil remains completely unreadable.
Section 3, measurement as faithful reading.
Let's look at what happens when we observe it. When a scientist actually measures the D10 particle, they aren't discovering its state. They are literally executing the command at that specific node, and instantly the unmeasured I9 partner mirrors the correlation. Now, why is it instant? Well, because there isn't some signal racing across physical space. The text proposes that distance is just a classical illusion. Space was already collapsed between them at the exact moment they became entangled.
The source links this exact dynamic to scriptural verse 19:12, describing it as the book held with strength. In this framework, quantum measurement isn't destroying a fragile state, it's a faithful reading. The I9 node is patiently holding the complementary verse, just waiting for its own exact moment of execution.
Section 4, the classical quantum covenant.
Let's compare two ideas here. Classical copying, like making a really bad photocopy, tries to duplicate a physical object. But doing that inherently corrupts the original. You lose information, and ultimately, you misread the book. The source views this as an inversion of verse 241. Quantum teleportation, on the other hand, reads the book correctly and re-executes the thread somewhere else. Because the book absolutely does not permit idolatrous duplication, which is a concept physics calls the no-cloning theorem, the original D10 node gets entirely destroyed. The thread isn't cloned, it's transferred. Which brings us right to that second number 2 in our formula. For this to work, the receiver actually needs the classical measurement data to interpret the hidden I9 correlation correctly. Without it, the I9 node is basically a verse in a language you haven't learned yet. This second 2 is the ordinary classical communication channel. The text calls this a covenant. It preserves causality, making sure teleportation can't break the speed of light. The identity was always there in the latency. The classical channel is literally just the key to unlock it.
Section 5. Reconstruction as reconciliation. Moving to that final number 7.
At the receiving end, that classical key we just talked about is combined with the latent I9 correlation. This unlocks the verse and rebuilds the original seed state perfectly. The source calls this the 7 or R19 reconciliation. It proves that the reconstructed particle isn't a copy. It's the exact same reader, just running on a completely different local node. The identity has arrived, and yet the body never actually moved.
The source material anchors this whole concept beautifully with the verse, light upon light. And it's careful to note that it doesn't say light upon lamp. The first light was that original seed, the pure potential. The second light is the reconstructed execution. The glass, the oil, and the lamp were all just the necessary apparatus that allowed the true light to be seen again.
Section 6. Identity travels without motion.
Now, you might be wondering, why does this matter in the real world? Well, because this 2 to 3 to 2 to 7 cycle creates a mathematically unhackable communication system. Any attempt to intercept it equals a measurement, and measurement forces an instant collapse. If a third party tries to siphon the data, the 337 entanglement covenant shatters instantly and audibly in the data. The source explains that any dual contraption referred to as tachoot that's built to steal information will instantly fail the very second it touches this book network. And this brings up a brilliant illustration from the text. It uses the poetic source anecdote of Yunus, or Jonah, in the belly of the fish. His body is present, but his self is absent, remembered only by the divine. It emphasizes this profound inversion of how we normally think about reality. The quantum state is not contained inside the particle. Actually, it's the other way around. The particle is inside the state.
So, just to quickly summarize our whole journey today, the particle never traveled. Only its identity arrived. We started with the seed, the pure potential of the 3. It bifurcated into entangled nodes through the 2 to 3 operator. We applied the classical channel covenant with the second 2, and we achieved perfect reconstruction with the 7. Teleportation is simply reading the result of collapsed space from a completely different angle.
Which leaves us with this final, really profound question to think about. If space itself is just a classical illusion generated by the act of measurement, what else in our physical universe is just a shadow of the book?